everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, August 17th of 2025. Now, I had an amazing week. It was full of this thought that started at the very beginning of the week, which is this is what I wrote in my journal. Let the beautiful things happen with no one watching. And what really brought this on is last Sunday's video, I had this statement that was in my Sunday message of love in the email that I send. And there was a line that came in and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So this line was, and I wrote this down in here, the dopamine drip of synthetic relevance. Now, if you think about that, we get this dopamine hit every time we post something and someone likes it. We get this dopamine drip, and it's not real relevance. It's synthetic. It's not real. And this spurred a email back and forth with James. So if you're watching today, James, thank you for tuning in and thank you for corresponding with me. I love connecting with you guys. If you ever feel inclined to zip me an email or comment underneath this video, I'm the one who takes a look and responds to you. But this spurred a back and forth. And then on Monday morning, I got up and I wrote in my journal about, does let beautiful things happen with no one watching? And then I closed my journal and I went on my walk. And so I just wrote that one thing, and I could not get that phrase out of my mind, the dopamine drip of synthetic relevance. And I started having all these things come in while I was walking, and I was like, okay, I'm on this 5-mile walk and I don't have my journal with me. And I pulled out my phone a couple times and opened up the notes and wrote a couple things because I didn't want to forget. And I just thought this is such a really important thing to talk about. So I've got some other things that I wrote down in my journal that I'm going to share with you quickly. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to focus on this idea that beauty does not need proof. We don't need proof that something is beautiful. In fact, I've really come to some beautiful realizations that it can be more beautiful if it's private and if no one is watching, okay? So before I really kind of dive into that, I wrote some interesting notes down that I think might help somebody who's watching, and I just thought, you know what, this would be still a good thing just to share some of the random thoughts from Jane on this Sunday. So the next thing after I wrote down that whole thing, and I am going to come back to that, keeping a state of amusement. As the world is wonky and all the stuff we've been talking about for the last 5 years, and even really the beginning of 2025, as the world has really exponentially shifted every single day, there's new things happening. And I really believe that humanity is holding on for the ride of its life, okay? So it's important to keep a state of amusement, okay? It's okay to be happy, and I wrote actually preferable. We get so caught in the suffering of others because we plug in to all the channels, whatever it is you're watching. If you're still watching mainstream media, you're going to see all kinds of stuff and horrible stuff. If you're even tuning into alternative media, you're still seeing alternative stuff and suffering, unless you choose differently, okay? So it's okay to be happy and actually preferable. There's this thought loop that I get over and over, and we think the same things no matter what it is, no matter the empowering steps we take. So what spurred this is I did a really big thing this week, and it's something that's been needed to be done, and I've been thinking about it. And then after I did this big thing I needed to do, I wrote down the thought loop over and over. We think the same things no matter what it is, no matter the empowering steps we take. So when you make an empowering decision to do something that you've been sitting on the fence and you finally do it, then you think over and over and over. You overthink yourself, okay? So then what I wrote is this: I caught myself there, and then it gets easier, because if you've ever done something that you needed to do and it took a leap of faith, there was a little bit of fear involved, whatever it is, and it could be any situation, person, thing, no matter what it is, right? You take the leap, you start the conversation, you start the action, whatever it is that you need to do, and then you disempower yourself. And this isn't always, but what happens is, and this happened for me again this week, and then I caught myself there in this loop, and then I immediately reversed it, and I empowered myself. And then I wrote, it gets easier. I took a big important step, and then I sat and thought about why it was justified over and over. And I wanted to write this down, and I wanted to share this with you because I know there are so many people that are doing things that are way out of their comfort zone. And we are programmed and conditioned in this lifetime to overthink our decisions, right? I thought about all the things, how, why, mostly how. Do I step out of my comfort zone? And then I said, what if I allowed myself to look ahead at the possibilities that this step or decision will clear room for? So I had these thoughts. It lasted less than a day. It was a partial day. And then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I just did something I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And now I'm disempowering myself. So to stop that right away, right? So what if I allowed myself to look ahead at the possibilities that this step or decision will clear room for? Literally making space for the new, the excitement, and the excitement, okay? And then I wrote this, make a list of all the things that this will open up and become possible. And then I did that. I wrote a whole list of stuff, okay? From doing just this one thing, from doing just one thing that you know you have to do, is it something scary, something sad, something that makes you nervous, whatever? Because we like and we crave certainty and security, okay? It's in our DNA. It's in our DNA from way back when there were prehistoric humans or early humans or whatever. It's a survival mechanism. We want security and we want safety, and certainty. And as soon as we get family, we have a child. It's like all those things heighten. So this is emotion that is in our DNA for survival. But most of us aren't in fight or flight or survival. We might have put ourselves in a survival mode. I mean, there's all kinds of nuances and all kinds of situations for everyone about whatever situations or whatever it is that you're dealing with, right? So the question is this: how do we finally take the leap? It can't be that bad or scary. That's the question I had to ask, that we have to ask ourselves. It can't be that bad or that scary. We make it so much worse in our mind than it actually is, right? And then ask yourself this question: what is the worst thing that can happen? If you make this decision, what's the worst thing that can happen? Can you stay in a place of love, compassion, and respect, even if it feels undeserved, for the person or the situation? Okay? And I wrote that, and then I went right back to my thing about, does beauty need proof? But I thought that section, it felt really relevant to share, because it's like, I know that there's so many people that are in the same exact position I am, with whatever situations we're all dealing with, who are going through the same things. And to me, if you can get to that place where you make a decision that's hard, and then you don't talk yourself out of it by chronic overthink, everything changes. And the faster you can get there, the easier it gets every time you need to make a new decision. Because decisions are coming at us at a fast pace, breakneck speed. These decisions that I think are going to carry us forward, if you're on a path where you see things and you know that as we rise in consciousness as a collective, that it doesn't take a massive percentage of us to tip the scales into the higher timeline. In fact, I listened to a beautiful podcast this week with Dr. Thomas Campbell. He's one of my favorite people. He is 80 years old now. He's a physicist. He awakened into higher consciousness and out of body when he was in his 20s in grad school. And if you've not, I'll put a link to the video that I listened to, this podcast. It's amazing. And I read his trilogy of books called My Big Toe, which is My Big Theory of Everything. I read that a few years ago. He actually showed up on the Joe Rogan show earlier this year. So I was like, okay, this guy who's been on the fringe for decades is now getting the spotlight he deserves because his ideas are so relevant for where we are. But you look at these people who started this kind of conversation all those decades ago, and now their ideas are not only relevant, but you look at the wisdom that it comes from someone like this. And so as I was listening to this podcast, I was like, it just solidifies everything. It is really, really a beautiful thought process. So then what I did is I just expanded, because I think this is really, really important in our evolution. As we're going through this time, we don't need to document everything. And where this all came to the end of this week is yesterday was my granddaughter's 14th birthday. And on Friday, I do this special thing with her and my grandson, and then I have two nieces from my sister who's much younger than me. She's 20 years younger than me. She has two little girls who are the same ages as my grandkids. So it's a tradition that I go out birthday shopping with them one-on-one with either Grandma Jane or with Aunt Jane. So with my nieces and with my grandkids. So Friday, I went with my granddaughter, who turned 14 yesterday, and we had the most spectacular day. And there were so many moments where I was sitting with her because we went shopping, we went to lunch, we did more shopping, and she is just 14 and sparkly and engaging, and she has my whole heart, as do all these beautiful kids in my life. And this one-on-one time is so precious. And as I sat across from her in lunch, I almost took out my phone and captured the moment, but I held back because of this. This felt like a sacred moment that I got to witness between the two of us. And I don't need a photograph to not only share with other people, to remember this moment. I don't need that. And everything about the day was just spectacular. So I think that this line of thinking, where it dropped in at the beginning of the week, as far as does beauty need proof? Do we need to capture every single sunset? The answer is we can, but no, we don't need to. And then of course that phrase that kept looping in my mind on Monday as I was walking, the dopamine drip of synthetic relevance. You think about, I want to be relevant, sure, but I want to be real. I don't want to be synthetically relevant. And I think that we are caught in this loop because of social media. A lot of people, I did this for years. I would post on Facebook, and I would post my inspirational photos of me hiking and me doing all the stuff, and me at the concert, and me in Europe, and I did all that. And it's not that I regret it at all, because it really gave me a glimpse of how easy it is to get sucked into that. And then 2020 hit, and I was like, and I'm out. I cut off all my personal sharing on that level. I was like, I'm done with this. And I had some deep realizations 5 years ago that just are still very, very relevant. So I want to share these beautiful thoughts with you. I found some amazing quotes, and then I wrote some questions for you to think about and journal on for this week. And the thought idea of the need for proof of beauty in this world, okay? So the idea is to let beauty be enough. Like my moments with my granddaughter, that I don't need proof of that. It's there. We need to let the beauty be enough, okay? So we need to realize, first of all, that the world is moving super fast. And I do know we do that. It's technology, social, spiritual. I mean, look at the spirituality that's growing and the rise in consciousness. This is where we need to use our discernment, because there are, even the spiritual community is being hijacked. So our discernment has to be super, super high, right? And we need to practice it. That intuition and that discernment, it's not going to just drop into you all of a sudden. Now, you can speed up the process if you really work at it, of course. So we think about all these things that we have to capture and then share. It's like, look, this sunset happened, I have to capture it. Or all the things, right? So we think about the things. Our phones are always nearby us, and Instagram and Facebook is just like right there waiting for us to upload it. And I can't tell you how many times I have been out over the years with people and friends, social situations, my age, who can't stop looking at their Facebook notifications or post something in the middle of an event that we're at. We're in the middle of this event. They take a picture of us enjoying or them or whatever, and then they post it, and then they get that dopamine drip, right? Of all the people who are responding and liking their post, okay? So not only are we not being present, and partly because our phone is just sitting right there. This is where, put that phone away when you're in situations. I didn't even have my phone out with my granddaughter at all. I mean, I had my phone in my purse, but I did not have it out. And it was a beautiful, beautiful, special day. So when everything is documented, beauty becomes something rather than, it becomes more of a display than something that you really live inside of. Instead of living inside this beautiful bubble, and that even doesn't sound right, but just instead of just living in these beautiful moments where we get to witness them in private or witness them in small situations or a one-on-one connection is so precious. I feel like it dilutes it if we just push it out there, okay? When we choose not to document, it feels like it's a radical act of just being present, okay? Especially now. And I think it feels that way because it is, right? None of it needs to be witnessed to be real, okay? By not sharing, we are more free to experience instead of feel like we have to perform. Where, the lighting has to be right, the angle has to be right, the sunset has to be, you took 50 sunset pictures just to get the right angle so it would look perfect when you posted it on your social media. If you've ever been at a concert in our modern times, and I have been, where people literally will hold their phone up and they will record the whole concert and watch it through their phone rather than watching it and letting the music wash over them. I have seen this so many times, and I have recorded bits and pieces of concerts in the past, and I've never gone back and watched them. And you might be a person who goes back and watches them, but I'm telling you, there is something special about not documenting every single moment. What, are they just going to live up in the Akashic records, and then what? You're gonna be able to access all the things you experience here anyway. Like, look at it that way. I just thought of that. So, and then I thought about this. What about consciousness and having the intimacy of different moments? How can we raise our consciousness when we enjoy beauty without proof? Okay, and then I wrote this. As consciousness rises, there are many people who are feeling a call to be more still, more present, and experience more depth in the moments. And you can't do that if you're so worried about documenting and posting, right? Letting something remain unwitnessed by the world can be a way of reclaiming intimacy with that moment, right? It's not about secrecy, it's about sovereignty, and it's about freedom, right? The experience belongs to you and to the present moment itself. This experience belongs to you. That might be hard for some people to wrap their head around, but I think, this is a modern world, and if you're in my age group or even a little bit younger, you remember that way before there was social media. I remember way before there was an internet. And so the world is changing exponentially, and I think that it's come full circle now to, it's like, we've done all this posting, all this data collection, all that these companies have been doing. We hand over all of our information, exactly what we're doing, all the names of all of our kids, all the stuff, we just hand everything over. And now it's coming full circle to many of us who are going, there's a sacredness in this moment. There's an intimacy that I miss, that I that I don't get to experience if I'm too busy sharing it. Okay, so it's not about secrecy. This is about sovereignty. So look at it that way. The experience belongs to you and to the present moment itself, not to an Instagram feed and not to an audience. Okay? I also think that there's a bit of sacredness sometimes when things are a mystery. You know, and I've said this before on this channel, even though maybe you don't realize this, because here I am every single week and I'm always sharing. I have a real huge privacy streak. Huge. It's almost indescribable, but I've always been this way from when I was very young. And as most of you know, I grew up in a very big family, second oldest of 14 kids, and my privacy and my sovereignty and my freedom was my number one. This was my number one thing. And I think this is why I would absorb so much of the information my dad would put out, because he wasn't just about plants and plant medicine. My dad was about freedom and the Constitution and sovereignty, and this was a part of our household. This was a part of our prayers. You know, please bless the United States, bless the people who run it. I mean, but there was always this idea of being a free, sovereign human in the private moments. This always just resonated deep within me, okay, from when I was very young. So there's a sacredness to this type of, to mystery, there's a sacredness to that. And I feel that to the very bones of who I am. And then I wrote this: not every flower needs to be pressed in a book. And I wrote that because my dad did plants, my mom loved plants. My mom used to collect flowers, press them in books, and then she would put the pressed flower on a card that she'd done a watercolor on, and then she would write a quote or a scripture or something, and then she would give these as cards for people. So we had volumes of books that were mostly like the encyclopedia, that a lot of times we would find pressed flowers in that had just kind of been forgotten or looked over or whatever, which is such a beautiful memory. In fact, I still have a little stack of cards from my mom over the years with these beautiful watercolors and pressed flowers on them. But not every flower needs to be pressed into a book. Some are meant to bloom and be enjoyed, and maybe just enjoyed by you. You know, you don't have to take 1,000 pictures of it to enjoy it. It's going to have its life. And then you got to be with that moment with that flower. So the same thing goes with all the other moments, I believe, not just the moments in nature with the sunsets and the flowers and the double rainbows and the beautiful waterfall you find yourself at. And trust me, I've taken thousands of pictures of all of these things. It is in the past. Every once in a while, I'll get a moment, I'll get a sunset that just takes my breath away. And I only usually take one, maybe two, and I just kind of realize it's not going to give me this same thing. I need to sit and just enjoy this sunset. Okay, letting it move. We need to let it move through us without holding on to it. And what that becomes is a practice in just trusting and surrendering and just enjoying the beauty, right? So I think this is how this can tie into these uncertain times that we're in. In times of uncertainty and chaos, this will help us find the things that really matter, okay? Something special that's just for you. Beauty doesn't need proof, but it can act as a refuge. It can act as like, I'm gonna go sit in my yard because I'm feeling stressed, or I'm gonna go sit on my balcony, wherever you live or wherever you are. I'm gonna go sit somewhere. Outside is always such a beautiful option. If you have the chance to get your feet in grass and go ground, all that heightens it up a little bit. But regardless, you could sit in a beautiful room that you've created in your home with no technology and no distractions and enjoy the beautiful space that you created, just in stillness, right? Imagine a sunset that no one sees but you. Imagine that. And I have had enough moments by myself as a person the age I am, with kids that have been grown up for a really long time, and moments when I have an evening to myself and I just get to experience a beautiful sunset or something beautiful, and it's all mine. It's almost, there's something so sacred and special about that. And I know that so many of you listening to this can completely 1,000% relate to that. It's amazing. When we carry this, it lands so quietly, right? I think this is real nourishment, and it's really what our soul craves. This is real nourishment, not that validation from someone else hitting the like button. Believe it or not, I think we are really coming to that realization. So many of us. Okay, so in this way, the choice not to document everything, this does become an act of freedom. You're also free from all the powers that be who are watching what you're posting, even if it's just to sell you stuff. Even if it's just to sell you stuff, they want to see. They know exactly. The algorithm tells them what you're interested in, and we all know and have experienced the fact that we are having a conversation. Our phone is maybe next to us or even over there, and when we go open up something, there's an advertisement for that thing we were talking about. So these moments of sovereignty and freedom, they have to be sought after by us. So this, what I wrote here is, this is why I came here. And I circled big and underlined 100 times, freedom. This is why I came here. And I know that because of the things that I grabbed a hold of from my parents. Just that act of freedom. In fact, one thing that was very, very pivotal for me when I was a teenager, I think I was about 16. I grew up in Idaho, and my dad's dad had a heating and plumbing and electrical business, and all of his sons and a couple of his daughters worked there except for my dad. My dad was a botanist, and he was the only child out of 7 that didn't work in the family business. And when I was 16 years old, there's a government agency called OSHA, which I believe is Occupational Hazard. It's like a safety regulation company. And of course, as with most regulatory bodies of the government, they have reached a point of overreach, which a lot of us know. I think regulations are important, but I think that there has reached a huge overreach. But when I was a teenager, OSHA came in to my grandpa's business and demanded things and bullied him, and my grandpa kicked them out, and then then they harassed him. He took them to court. And not only did he take him to the courts in Idaho, he actually took this case all the way to the Supreme Court, and he won. And I remember this. It actually gives me chills to think about it, because I remember this as an act of standing up for yourself, and as an act of a free business owner standing up for his rights. These are the kinds of things that happened during my childhood that were so pivotal for me. So I wrote here, this is why I came here. I believe that I have this, and I'm a Taurus bull. I am stubborn. And so Taurus is earth and grounded, and I love astrology. I think it's a guiding system and whatever. But I believe that this is something that is so strong in me that, this whole COVID thing hit, and I was like, freedoms are being gone. And I still think we are still in a place of paying attention to that. So then this is what I wrote down about freedom. Freedom, all this, that when we choose not to document, that we get freedom from external validation. We don't need validation from an external source. We can get that ourselves. We get freedom from the need to keep up with others, what they're doing, what they're having, what they're getting, what they're experiencing. We get freedom from that. We get to have our own experience, okay? And then this is the most important piece of this freedom. We get freedom to be fully alive as the world unfolds. We get to be present. While the world and our experiences are unfolding, we get the freedom to experience it while it's happening without the need to document it. So here's this. Maybe the deeper invitation of this whole thing is this. And here's a question. What if the most meaningful part of our lives are the ones that no one else will ever know about? What if that's the most meaningful thing those most meaningful moments. Because I will tell you that my little shopping and lunch date with my granddaughter on Friday, of course her parents knew about it, her brother knew about it, my husband knew about it. Like, this is a little tradition that we do. But the actual moments that we experience together, that was something special between the two of us. And you can't explain it until you get to experience it. And it's so beautiful. So then what I did is I did my normal thing where I wrote down some reflections. And let's see, I actually found, let me see if I can find these. Okay, well, let me say this first. I wrote down Marissa Peer because about 10 or 11 years ago, I was at a mastermind and I got to meet Marissa Peer. She was presenting there and I was participating in the mastermind. And we ended up connecting. Our energies gravitated toward each other. We ended up spending some time together and communicating. And if you don't know who she is, look her up. Marissa Peer. She's a psychologist, she's amazing. She's in the UK. And even when a few years after we met in the US, I was in London and I called her up and we met her and her husband for lunch. And I did a couple of interviews with her. And the reason I bring her up is because her main message is that you are enough. This is one of the things that she talked about, and she was really talking about that when I first met her. So I wrote this: when we resist the urge to document, we gift ourselves the experience of being enough, or what I like to call enoughness. And so then I just jotted down Marissa Peer because her work is amazing. She's, incredible. In fact, I'll put a link to I did a video interview with her a few years ago. So it still lives on this channel. So here is a beautiful quote. So I found some quotes and then some questions for you to journal on, okay? So here's the first quote. The most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or touched. They are felt with the heart. And this is Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I probably totally massacred that name. So here's a question. Let me read the quote again. The most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or touched. They are felt with the heart. So here's a question you can ask yourself for your journal. When was the last time I felt beauty in my heart that no photo or words could capture? And how can I honor that memory now? And I think for me, that question is easy to answer. I can honor the memory by just bringing it back into my awareness. All I have to do is think about it because it's there, right? And then here's another quote. If you're always trying to be noticed, you will never truly see. And this is an anonymous quote, but if you are always trying to be noticed, you will never truly see. That is power. So here's a question you can ask yourself. In what areas of my life do I focus more on being seen than on truly seen? So what areas do you focus on? Just try to be seen, then truly seeing the moment, okay? And what might shift for you if you release that or you reverse that? Reverse it, okay? And then this quote, this is also anonymous. Not everything needs to be put into words. Not every beauty needs to be shared. Some things shine brighter when they remain unnamed. I love that one. What is one memory I have never shared with anyone? What makes it feel sacred to keep it to myself? I'm sure many of us could think about that if we really sat in stillness. And it could be just enjoying a sunset or anything. Laying in the grass, remembering a day when the clouds were just spectacular and you were finding all kinds of shapes and animals and watched it change from a dragon to a butterfly. Like, I have done that so many times. I love clouds and I love watching clouds as they change and shift, and I can see all kinds of shapes. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to just still look at clouds. In fact, I even do that when I watch a sunset, and a sunset where there's lots of clouds that make it extremely beautiful. I can see the clouds and I can sit and watch a sunset for an hour while it goes from how it turned and goes all the dark, deep colors, and then when all the colors start to fade until they go, all the clouds or whatever's there kind of goes gray with just a tinge, and then it's done. Like, one of the most beautiful experiences, in my opinion, of being a human. So I really love that. And then this quote, and I don't even know how to pronounce the name, so I'm not going to try. A hidden life lived quietly can be the most radiant. A hidden life lived quietly can be the most radiant. So here's a question to ask yourself. Where in my life do I long for more quiet radiance? How can I step into it without announcing it? That is really an important question. If you'd like more radiance and beauty in your life, and you want to experience it with that quietness, where can you find those places? How can I step into it without announcing it? That's good, right? Okay. So here's a quote. Impermanence is the very fragrance of beauty. This is from Osho. Okay. And then here's a question you can ask yourself. What fleeting moment in my life taught me the most about beauty? And how did impermanence make it even more precious? Like, think about the most beautiful flower you've ever seen. And I've seen so many beautiful flowers when I've been hiking, especially when, you go into these meadows up in the Wasatch Mountains, and you're at the beginning of when all the wildflowers are just going crazy. Then the next time you go, they're not like they were. So, and I've just sat in stunned silence sometimes as I've walked through some of these meadows of just brilliant, brilliant wildflowers. So if you've not experienced this, go to a park. If you're not a hiker, you don't live near mountains, go somewhere where you can enjoy this kind of beauty, and then really pay attention. Okay? Then this is a Zen proverb. The flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. It just blooms. So here's a question you can ask yourself. How often do I compare my experiences of beauty to others? And what would it mean to simply bloom in my own way? We're all so perfectly formed. We're in the image of God. We're a piece of God. We're a piece of consciousness and creation. Like, we're all so beautifully formed. And we're always comparing ourselves to others, right? And then this quote. And I found these two quotes, and this has to do with the whole freedom piece, because as I've told you, this is a very important piece for me. Here's a quote. This is also anonymous. You do not need to document to remember. You do not need to prove to matter. You do not need to be seen to be real. Okay, so you do not need to document to remember. You do not need to prove to matter. You do not need to be seen to be real. No one needs to see you to be real. No one needs to see you doing this thing to be real. Okay? And here's two questions to ask yourself. Where in my life do I still feel the need to prove myself? That is a massive, massive question, because I think we are so in that. We are in the thick of that. Many people, we're still in the thick of that. With all the posting and the social media and all that, we're trying to prove our worth. We're trying to prove how enough we are, how worthy we are, how beautiful we are. We're trying every time we post something that has the right angle and the right, you're expecting all the stuff, right? What might it feel like to drop that completely? What might that feel like? Can you even imagine your life without that? And if you've got a platform where that's how you make your money, and I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm talking about the everyday person who posts and gets that dopamine drip of synthetic relevance. Right? Okay, and then this quote. This is actually adapted from Eckhart Tolle, and I love him. When you release the need to be witnessed, you finally witness yourself. So here's a question to ask yourself, and this is the last question. In what ways am I already learning to be my own witness? And how can I deepen that self-seeing? How can I self-see more? How can I deepen that? In what ways am I already learning to be my own witness? That's such a beautiful place to land. Seriously. Okay, so then to end this video and this little thought process for the week, here's what I wrote. All of this, this world encourages us to capture, curate, and share. Okay, but there's a quiet power in choosing otherwise. There's just a quiet power. You don't need to say, "Oh, look at me, I'm not posting." You could even say, "I'm not gonna." You know people who go onto their social media and they actually tell you, "I'm taking a break from posting," and then they get all these people, "Oh, don't take a break, we love your," or they might say whatever. So there's a quiet power in just choosing otherwise. Okay, when we allow beauty to exist without proof, we reclaim it as something that's more deeply personal. We realize that experience belongs only to us and only in the present moment. Okay, think about that. These unshared bits of beauty, they become the treasures that our soul really, really desires. These become such treasures. Seriously. If I had taken a bunch of pictures of me and my granddaughter and all that, it wouldn't be the same. There's something so sacred and special about that. So these unshared moments of beauty become these secret treasures of our soul. They nourish us in ways that nothing or no one can ever validate. It can never be validated by anyone else. So if we let our life unfold without the need for witnessing, without the need for witnesses, okay, it's not about hiding, it is about freedom. That's what you need to remember. This is not about hiding something. This is not about being secretive and lying. That's not what this is about. This is about freedom. And it is a special kind of freedom that you can experience until you try it. And those people who experience this because they haven't sucked into that other documentation of everything, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you haven't experienced that, that is true freedom, right? So it's about trusting that our life has meaning, even when no one else sees it. Okay. The truest beauty, it comes out when there's silence and when no one's watching. Okay. And then this is to end it. When we live in this way, it is a way of remembering that we don't need to prove that we exist. We are already proof. You are proof. You exist. You're here. You know, right? So, you might be living this to the full extent of everything that I'm hoping to impart in this message. That might be something that embodies the way that you live. If you're a person who's not in my generation, which is the baby boomer generation, and you already live this way, beautiful kudos to you. Because it really is an amazing, special way to experience the beauty of this world and freedom at the same time, with realizing that you don't need a witness to it. Beauty can exist in a more special, reverent, amazing way without the witness. So I'd love to know what you think about that, and if it lands with you, and what do you think? Like, do you think that's a crazy thought process, or does it kind of land in you like, yeah, that feels like I could be relevant, and I don't need to make sure the world knows I'm relevant. So I hope you guys have a beautiful week. I know this past week was just really, really amazing for me. Lots of just simple, beautiful things that just are in my heart. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. I love you a ton, and here we go, 3rd week of August. So have a beautiful day, and we will see you next time.